Hello everybody and welcome to the United Stand. Manchester United fans, you've had a response from your owners. You've had a response from Joel Glazer. There was a deadline set by the Manchester United Supporters Trust of today to respond to the outlines of what Manchester United fans want in relation to the future of this club, and they have responded. The first thing I'm going to say is that if you take what the Glazers are saying as read, then there will be big reform at Manchester United Football Club. But as we all know, actions speak louder than words. This is 16 years too late. We are still a club that is in debt. We are still a club that is badly run. And many people will not be taking this on board, I don't think. I'll read you what's been said. I mean, look. Actions speak louder than words. And what they're talking about here is, if you take it as literally, they're saying that, this is what they're saying. He says that we recognise that the government-initiated fan-led review of football is a positive opportunity to explore new structures for fan engagement and influence. I can assure you that we'll willingly and openly engage in the review with the aim of putting fans at the heart of the game and ensuring their interests are advanced and protected. These commitments are a starting point for further dialogue. Well, look. Actions will speak louder than words. What Manchester United fans want is, some people want 50+1, some people want the Glazers gone completely, some people want total ownership. I cannot sit here as somebody who definitively knows what the best way forward is for football. I think you need private investment. You need people like the Glazers and Adidas and Kolar and everyone like that. You need all that. But you also need fans at the forefront of what's happening at their football club. There needs to be a fusion. Now, are the Glazers in a position of total control going to relinquish half of that control to fans so that they have a say in their football club whilst also being happy to keep half of the club? I mean, look, that's a big ask. What are the deadlines? When is it going to happen? Is it just lip service? And it's dangerous. It's dangerous. And I would say this to Manchester United Football Club, the Glazers, from a fan perspective, from my point of view. The danger with this is that if, and it's a big if, and I think a lot of United fans won't be convinced like this, but if you were offering to give up half of the club to fans and actually build this football club again, that puts the fire out of this momentum behind the Glazers out. And when does this happen? And what if you're just doing it to put the fire out and then you go, we're not doing it, and the fire's out of the Glazer out movement? So there's going to be skepticism, there's going to be lack of trust, and there's going to be people who just say flat no. But discussion should have been happening for a long time, and actions will speak louder than words. And I hope that it is a first step to change in one way or another for Manchester United. But let me read out the statement, because I know that a lot of people are anxious about that. So this is a reply from Joel Glazer to the Manchester United Supporters Trust, who issued the letter. And then we'll go through what the Manchester United Supporters Trust has said as well. I can also tell you that on Twitter, a lot of people and other social medias are saying Glazers out, forget it, not interested in what you've got to say. So there's going to be strong feelings, but take it as, what I would say is, take it as reading it and then have your opinion. So Joel Glazer says, I'm writing in reply to the open letter from Musk dated May the 3rd, which mirrored many themes of the letter from our fans forum. Their letter clearly spelt out that our initial support for the European Super League left fans feeling angry and let down. I'd like to reiterate my sincere apology for the mistakes that were made. I want to acknowledge the need for change with deeper consultation across a range of important issues, including the competitions we play in. We also recognise the importance of fan and football interests being embedded in key decision-making processes at every level of the club, and we're open to constructive discussions on how to enforce that principle. We remain committed to working with the wider football community to make the game stronger and more sustainable over the long term, and we will now focus our efforts on doing this within the existing structures of UEFA and the Premier League. And of course, I'll just jump in here and say everything that he said there is fine. You want to talk with fans about what to do. You want to be committed to UEFA and the Premier League. But that Super League thing 2 weeks ago, you wanted to go into without any of this and turn your back on the Premier League. So, look, there is a massive trust issue there, of course. In addition, I want to reassure you that my family and I care deeply about Manchester United and feel a profound sense of responsibility to protect and enhance its strength for the long term while respecting its values and traditions. We'll clear the debt. Our top priority is, and always will be, competing for the most important trophies, playing entertaining football with a team comprised of top quality recruits and some of the world's best homegrown talent. Under Ollie, we feel we are absolutely on the right track. Success on the field must be underpinned by solid foundations off it. We've supported sustained investment in the team over many years, and that will continue this summer. And I want to jump in there on that. if the Glazers really do care about the football club, they need to listen to what the fans are saying, because let's pretend the Glazers do care about the football club and they really do think that they've invested over the years to provide success. Your big issue, the Glazers, and this is the thing you really need to take on, and this is not I like Henderson or De Gea, this is not like opinion, this is fact. If you believe that you care about this football club, and if you think that you've invested in this football club, then please, please, please get people into that football club to spend your money properly. Because Ed Woodward, Richard Arnold, Matt Judge, these people don't know football. If you think you've spent £800 million over the last 10 years, you may as well have chucked it on a bonfire. I'm not joking. It's not opinion. It's not divisive. You let people spend money badly. Phil Jones got a 5-year contract. Ridiculous. Pereira got one as well. Sanchez. You're looking to sell De Gea after 2 years of giving him a 350k contract. There are bad decisions after. And Herrera walked out the door for nothing. We didn't get Bellingham or Haaland or Sancho. You need to... If you think you care about this football club and you think you're investing in this football club, then and you're confused why United fans don't like you and you think that you want to win that trust back, please, for the love of God, put people in place who know football. Because an Edwin van der Sar or someone like that is not going to make the footballing decisions badly like Woodward has and everyone else. So get rid of the status quo and employ football people. That is essential point one. Having these bankers who don't understand football making decisions are why your money gets wasted. Indeed, one of the clearest lessons over the last... success on the field must be underpinned by solid foundations. We have supported sustained investment in the team. We recognise that we will need to significantly increase investment in Old Trafford and our training complex to ensure that the club's facilities remain among the best in Europe. That has to happen. I acknowledge that, whether it's the Glazers, whether it's fans, or whether it's a new billionaire owner. That has to happen. And that has to be acknowledged. And what I would say is, as a United fan, what I will be doing is I will be underlining areas and keeping it, because they put this into writing now. As part of this, we will consult with fans on investments related to the stadium and the matchday experience. Indeed, one of the clearest lessons of the past few weeks is the need for us to become better listeners. To this end, I can commit the club will engage across... What are you doing in there? Sorry about that. There's people in the next room chucking stuff about. This is a very serious matter. Indeed, one of the clearest lessons of the last few weeks is the need for us to become better listeners. To this end, I can commit the club will engage across all of the issues raised in your letter. To highlight some of specific points, as one of the few European football clubs listed on the public markets, we believe in the principle of fans owning shares in the club. We've previously engaged with you on fan share ownership, and we want to continue and accelerate those discussions together with provisions to enhance associated fans consultation. Now, this is a big issue. Now, if they're going to give fan ownership and fan shares, those shares must have voting rights, and those shares must amount to a considerable amount of ownership in the club. There's no point in giving fans the opportunity to buy shares in Manchester United up to the value of 5%. And you can have voting rights, but you've only got 5% because you're going to get knocked down. This is a challenge that we as fans, if it's the Glazers or it's the government or anything else, have to think very, very carefully about. Because the Glazers might say, you can have 51% in this club, but you're going to pay us $2 billion for it because the club's worth $4 billion. So this is what I mean. The Glazers... I mean, you're getting into semantics here, you're getting into finances here, but the reality is the Glazers could play quite a clever game here. And it's not even a clever game. They could say, you know what? We will let the fans have half the club, but they can pay us $2 billion for it. And if we pay $2 billion for it, they've made $2 billion. So, you know, it might be a clever way for the Glazers to say, I want $2 billion, let the fans buy $2 billion of the club, we'll keep half of it anyway. Or maybe they'll only give you 30%. So these details are very important, and this is the situation where actions speak louder than words, because if everybody walks away and goes, oh, it's fine now, let's forget it all about it, and then in 2 months' time they say you're only having 10%, then the fire's gone out of the Glazer out movement, hasn't it? So, you know, I appreciate what's been put out, but we need the details and the timescales. Are you going to relinquish half of that club so that fans actually have a say in it? Or are you going to relinquish 10%? So, yeah, you've got shares, but they mean nothing. We recognise that the government-initiated fan review of football is a positive opportunity to explore new structures for fan engagement and influence, and I can assure you that we're willingly open and engage in the review with the aim of putting fans at the heart of the game. These commitments are a starting point for further dialogue, including all the specific points in your open letter, rather than final proposals. We want to work together to come up with an ambitious package of measures which will transform our relationship with fans and strengthen the club for the long term. In this spirit, we will reach out to you to discuss the next steps. Thank you again for your work and your passion for the club. I look forward to new level engagement between Must and the club. Right, so, I mean, we will talk about Manchester United Supporters Trust response as well, but... I mean, somebody just said in the live chat there, but what if you don't trust Must? I mean, look, that is, these are the things that are going to happen next, because there are people that don't trust Must. Manchester United Supporters Trust. So the Manchester United Supporters Trust is going to be talking to Manchester United. Is that representative of Manchester United fans? There are fans from Manchester, there are fans around the world that don't feel that the Manchester United Supporters Trust represent them. So what are Manchester United going to do to talk to those fans? Because you can't just have one organisation representing the fans when there's people that feel that Must don't represent them. So, there's a lot that needs to be done. And what I would implore the club to do is what many of us, and Must, to be fair, have been trying to do over the last couple of weeks, is bring unity into the fan base so that you've got representation from everybody. The fans forum of Manchester United is very much about the match going experience. You've got things like the Red Army, you've got season ticket holders, the over 60s, the disabled, obviously very important, Manchester United Supporters Trust. A wide representation of match day going fans from Old Trafford are on the fan forum. Is there the Manchester United Supporters Trust for a representative from India? Is there somebody from America? I think these things are all really important, and I think this is an opportunity. Unity is massive across the fan base, and I think it needs to be represented by all. And funnily enough, Manchester United Supporters Trust mentioned that as well. So, look, my initial assessment, what I can see a lot of people saying Glazers out there. A lot of people saying Glazers out there. So, to summarise, if you don't want to listen to what I've just said, basically the Glazers, or Joel Glazer, has responded to the letter from Manchester United Supporters Trust, which basically encapsulates all United fans' frustrations over the last couple of weeks in response to the European Super League, but also over the last 16 years. Manchester United fans want their club back. Ideally, I think Manchester United fans want the Glazers out. But if that's not going to happen, they want a say in their club, and they want a say that's not a token gesture. They don't want to be sat on the boardroom being given rich tea, biscuits and a cup of tea and saying, you just sit there and be quiet. They want a say in their club. They want to be able to have a say in the structure of the club, whether it be stadia, whether it be, future planning, things like that. And the only way you're going to get that is by having an equal voice. We all know this. An equal voice is far more important than somebody just sat there in the corner observing. And to get an equal voice, they need to have an equal ownership of the club. That is what Manchester United fans want. This letter from the Glazers is basically saying that we take all that on board and we do want to get you involved, but there's no detail about how involved we're going to be. There's no detail about when it's going to happen. There's no there's an apology in there. Look, to be honest with you, I'll always look at both sides. That could be the Glazers saying, we're going to give you 51% of this club. We'll keep 49%. We're more than happy with that. You crack on. We'll crack on. We'll work together and we'll make Manchester United great again. I think many United fans might say Glazers out, but ultimately that's what 50 plus 1 is. 50 plus 1 is 49% or whatever of private investment, and 50 plus 1 is United fans having membership votes. So, does it really matter if it's the Glazers having the 49%? You don't necessarily need the Glazers to go out. But ultimately, that letter could be the beginning of something really good, or it could be words to make everyone think that there's something good happening and then just put the fire out on the Glazer out movement. And that's the dilemma. It's a political situation. Very political with Manchester United now. And the response from Manchester United Supporters Trust is a very interesting one. Well, let's read it out. So the Manchester United Supporters Trust have responded to what Joel Glazer said. They've said, Joel Glazer today replied to the open letter sent to him. This followed on from the letter we sent a week ago from the Emergency Fans Forum. The response, in theory, and we emphasise in theory only, could be a change in the direction and approach by the owners versus their silence and disregard for communication over the last 16 years. What they're saying there is that this could be a change in approach by the owners who for 16 years haven't engaged with the fans and now are. Many will say that's 16 years too late. Personally, in most walks of life, I do believe in second chances. And it's funny because I mentioned this about 6 months ago that, look, one of the best scenarios could be that the Glazers actually start putting money into the club and run it properly. Look, that doesn't mean I trust them at all, but I think that's what Must are saying there is that, look, this could be, in theory, a change of direction, but it might not be the direction that everyone wants to go. They say, we will, however, determine our position based on the resulting actions rather than words alone, i.e. actions speak louder than words. We have seen empty words too many times previously. We will seek a mandate from our members and from the wider fan base before proceeding. We will only wish to engage in this process should our supporters want us to do. And I applaud that. Because I think the Manchester United Supporters Trust does get quite a bit of stick in the fan base. It does. People don't really know what they do. Some people don't trust them. But what I would say is that over the last couple of weeks, the engagements I've had with them have been very positive. There's been a willingness to, park past issues and discuss unity and going forward together. So I would applaud them on saying that on this matter, the Manchester United Supporters Trust will listen to its members and the wider fan base and decide how to go forward. And they will go forward based on that and not individual theories on what might be good, because it needs unity. We'll only wish to engage in this process should our supporters want us to do it. The onus remains on the club to put right the problems of the past, not just the European Super League, but the overall lack of communication and consultation by the owners. Our primary objective remains to ensure a supporter share scheme is put in place which carries equal voting rights to the shares held by the Glazer family. This scheme would be promoted to the global fan base and should in turn build a notable stake in the club. This is music to my ears. This is classic Queen, because the reality is that is what we want here. The prime objective is to ensure a supporter share scheme is put in place which carries equal voting rights with the Glazers. Therefore, the Glazers can vote on something, but fans have equal voting as well, so that no decision can be made just off the Glazers. It must also have fan agreement as well. And this scheme would be promoted to you, the global fan base, because to be honest with you, if it's going to be share driven, it's going to need the global fan base. You will never, ever in a million years get 50% of the club owned by fans from England or even Manchester. It won't happen because it would take the global fan base to do it, because you're talking about fans having a stake in the club. And look, I'm not a capitalist or anything like that, but if I wanted shares in Manchester United, and I don't know whether I would, I probably would, I would expect to pay for them, and I'd expect you to have to pay for them as well. Now, whatever they're priced at, 20 quid a share, whatever, that's how it should work. So look, whether they'll do that or not, I don't know. They go on to say that through all this, our goal remains the same, and as set out in the open letter to Joel Glazer, we want a new Manchester United with a meaningful shareholding for supporters and a meaningful say in key areas. This is our objective, and there will be no let up until we get there with that. So very, very important at that. Let's get some of your responses. If you want to do it through Super Chats, that's fine, but I will read them anyway. Jack Fawcett says, no surprise that this statement comes out on the back of all the sponsors' ratings being tanked by United fans. And if they can do what they have said, it would be a good start. This is the most they can say initially, and it's a good plan of action. Vinit and Jack, I agree with both of you. They have to make a statement because the situation is stinky. But also, whatever statement they make won't be trusted anyway. So it's down for Manchester United fans personally to decide what to do. Harrison says it's all bullshit, and I don't believe it. 50 plus 1 or nothing, says Lucan. This could just be a plan to keep delaying until the fire burns out, says Advath. And I think that's a very important point as well. We are in that situation where the fires are burning brightly and effectively, and therefore, if those fires do continue to burn, then the Glazers need to try and put them out. It's going to take time, and I think that it's going to take more than what I think and more than what you think to decide here. My point really is here that we have to continue with the the desire to change, because I want change, and I think we all want change, and therefore the fire shouldn't go out, and therefore things must continue in the way that people want them to. However, I do think, if I'm honest, I do think we're in a different situation where we were to a couple of hours ago, because we've had a response. They didn't have to respond, and whilst I wouldn't applaud this response, I don't think we should be applauding the Glazers for anything really. I would acknowledge that response, like must have, and say that, well, now the devil's in the detail. You know, where are we going with this? Because ultimately, how long does it take for the Glazers to say? Basically, what I would want is a response very, very quickly about how much they're willing to give up in relation to ownership of that football club. Are you going to give equal voting rights to fans? And how quick is that going to happen? I've seen more sincerity in a job rejection email. Until legitimate change occurs, it's just more generic PR to me, says Red Devils Down Under. The opportunity is there. The opportunity is there for Manchester United to do something very, very different. But it needs to happen quickly. Consultation takes months, could take years. We haven't got time for that. We're going into a big summer where some people are talking about boycotting shirts and worse. So these things need to be parked, but only parked if there is something legitimate that's going to happen. So actions speak louder than words is 100%. There is, you know, I think if you're Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who's a very glass half full person, he'd look at that and go, Karaki, there's a lot to be excited about. But I'm not excited about it. I'm suspicious of it. And that in no way is that a up yours to Manchester United or the Glazers, which, you know, in some ways they probably deserve that. It's not that. It's just a lack of trust. You know, I said this a couple of weeks ago. The trust is gone. How do you rebuild that trust without people just thinking it's words? The way you rebuild that trust is you rebuild the trust. If Joel Glazer came out today and said, this is the plan, I've spoken to my accountants, I bet he's got more than one, I've spoken to the legislators, we are going to issue 51% of this club as shares, and they will be available only to fans, and therefore, you know, you've got to be very careful about private investment there. I mean, how does that all work? But 51% of this club will be owned by the fans. Therefore, there will be board members representing the fans, voted in by the fans, and that's the way the club's going to go forward. Then, you know, let's crack on with it and let's do it. Are they going to do that? I mean, look, I'm thinking on my feet here, but I've got no problem, and I'm sure many of you haven't got any problems with United fans buying £2 billion worth of shares, and that £2 billion, you know, effectively goes to the Glazers, which I don't really feel comfortable with. But, you know, that is a way forward. But it's a difficult one. It's really difficult. I want to get your thoughts on this. It's such a difficult one because I do think that there needs to be... We're almost stuck at an impasse here. I mean, what are we going to do? You know, can't get more games cancelled, don't buy the shirts, drive the price down. What if the Glazers don't sell? What if they just stop buying players and the club goes bankrupt? You know, is that the way to go? That's an option. Or is it, you know, sit down and try and get this ownership that we want? But you know, at the moment, United fans are taking a stand. It's a United stand, isn't it? They're stood up and they're doing things. Loads of people are doing lots of good things to try and bring change to the club. What you're basically asking United fans to do is, whilst they're standing up and they're making their protest known, you're asking them to calm down, sit down and trust that they're going to do something that's worth doing. And I think United fans will sit down, but only when the thing's there on paper that we sign it and this is better for us. There are 40 million followers on Instagram. If they each save £100, that's 4 billion, says Yazin Ali. Hi Mark, hope you're having a good day, says Quido. Yeah, thanks everyone for watching, by the way. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. Naga says you should trust the process. I really do want to get your thoughts though, because effectively, if you're tuning in a little bit late, Joel Glazer has issued a letter. In that letter, it talks about investment in the team, investment in the stadium, fans getting involved in the club, share issuing to fans, voting rights, etc. Everything we want the stadium and the structure of the club invested in. We want the team invested in. We want Ollie backed. And we also want fans owning the club in a way that they can actually have a say in the club. So Joel Glazer's letter does do all that. The question is it 16 years too late? Do we want them out completely? Or is it, or are we moving the goalposts? And we're not moving the goalposts because it depends what you want. Personally, I want fans having a say in this football club, having an ownership in this football club, and I want us to forge a way forward as a football club in a different way. I'm not massively concerned if the Glazers stay on, personally, as long as they don't own all of the football club and have all of the say. And I've said that from day one. You know, if you're talking about Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund, 49% of those clubs have private investment. But that private investment, I can't be picky about who that is. You know, ideally, you'd want it to be bloody Elon Musk or someone like that. But the reality is, if you've got 51% of your club, the Glazers can't just take dividends out anyway, because the fans would say you're not having it. So then your revenue streams start to go back into the club again. So the main thing for me is that fans get on that board. And the Glazers are potentially offering that up. But are they offering it up? When are they offering it up? How much are they offering up? And as somebody said there, that letter is vague. It's got no dates in it. It's got no clarity in it. It talks about we're committed to this, we're committed to that. Well, people can be, I can be committed to scoring a penalty tomorrow morning for my pub team, but I might miss. So when is it happening? How is it happening? Can we trust that it's happening? And also, when they talk about fans having a say in the club, fans having shares in the club, they might only be giving up 5%. So yeah, there's still a long way to go. And I think what will happen is, looking around social media and looking at what you were saying, and ultimately, this is what Musk says, they will be divided. This will not be driven by what individuals think. This will be driven by what everybody thinks. And what I'm reading at the moment is that people are saying they will not, they don't trust it. They don't trust it, and they don't want to believe it, and there's too much confusion in there. So there's the challenge to Manchester United Football Club is, you've put a statement out, it dangles a carrot, but people ain't biting on that carrot. For the moment, we'll carry on with what we're doing. If you can come back with more definitive things, then maybe there is an opportunity for change there. But it's very interesting. They'd have to change the way the voting shares are structured, says Sean Finity. As it stands now, Glazers can only own 10% of shares outstanding, but still control majority voting rights, says Sean Finity. And Man United is listed on the New York Stock Exchange. How can fans buy shares if the company's not even listed in the right place, says Omkar. And when did Joel become a people pleaser, says Steve Locke. Why did the Glazers never come out and talk in front of the press? Has he ever come out previously in the past 16 years to talk about the plan publicly? Can't understand why he only writes letters, says Andrew. And look, you know what? I can give you my pie in the sky structure of Manchester United, and it follows a very similar model to Bayern Munich and Dortmund. Not necessarily in relation to making money. I'm sure that more clubs make more money than Bayern and Dortmund, but I'll go back to that line that that Joel Glazer spoke about, where he said what was it he said? We have supported a sustained investment in the team over many years, and that will continue this summer. That, to me, is probably the one sentence that I would pluck out, and I would say Joel Glazer needs to listen about. Because we have supported sustained investment in the team over many years, and that will continue this summer. We did a video last summer, and we were talking about transfers. And we were talking about, what if the Glazers aren't the villain? What if it's down to incompetence on the board because they have spent money? It was a hypothetical scenario. And I remember saying that I would love somebody who knew what they were doing to sit down with the Glazers and say, kick Ed Woodward out, kick Richard Arnold out, don't let them into this meeting. Let me sit you down and tell you a little story about football, right? You do not give 5-year contracts to Phil Jones and give him 20 million over 5 years. You know why you don't do it? Because he's an injury-prone, not very good centre-back. That's a terrible business decision. 20 million. Ander Herrera, you do not let his contract run down so he walks out the door. 25 million out the door. Alexis Sanchez, you do not pay him tens of millions of pounds and then let him and pay him off to go. probably 50 million out the window. Straight away, that's 100 million quid gone on bad decisions made by your board. Your board is constructed of people who helped you buy this football club. They're bankers. They don't have football interest. You need to put football people on that board. You need to have the manager. Ollie drops the hints enough. I'm here to win football matches. You need a chief exec who speaks to the media. You need a sporting director who speaks to the media. And these people need to be intrinsically linked into decision making in that football club. Because I'll tell you what, Mr. Glazer, if you put a football person into that position, you'd make more money. Because 100 million wouldn't be walking out the door on contracts for Phil Jones and Ander Herrera and Alexis Sanchez mistakes. The club needs restructuring, and they need to move away from this banker orientation and get proper football people in there. There's loads that could be done at that football club. Even if the Glazers stayed in charge, there's loads that could be done in that football club. But they've got to listen, and they've got to move towards being a football. We're a business, we're not a football club. We need to become a football club. That's what we need. They can't even face the camera. They ignore the journalists. Glazers are liars, says Ashwin. And look, this is the problem they've got. Actions speak louder than words. I don't think when you read the response from Manchester United Supporters Trust, they acknowledge it. They say that, look, within there is stuff that could be what we're looking for. But ultimately, the devil is in the detail, and we'll put this to the fans, and the fans will decide whether we take it or not. And reading what's going on social media and reading what you people are saying in the live chat, people do not agree. May the 13th is ringing about. You know what's happening on May the 13th. Manchester United are playing Liverpool at Old Trafford. Another protest, another way forward. It's never going to be solved today. Manchester United Football Club would not expect everyone to go, it's fine, he's put a letter out, he's thinking about giving us some shares, let's forget about it. That was never going to happen, and the club know that's not going to happen. It's not even a first step, it's a statement. It's a statement. What the club needs to do now, and I would challenge the club, and everyone will challenge the club, they need to take that statement and turn it into something. And whilst they're turning it into something, the warning will be, you're still going to get the Glazer out protests. You're still going to get people going after the sponsors. You're still going to get people trying to get the Glazers out. Man United just need to take that on board. That is going to happen. You've drawn a line in the sand. You've said what you've said. There is no structure in relation to how much of the ownership will be given to the fans, when it's going to happen. There's no structure on when you're going to rebuild the club. There's a lot of talk about discussions, throwing it back towards the fans. We want to talk to the fans about the future. We want to talk to the fans about the stadium. That's just delaying tactics. I'll give you something right now. Start building Old Trafford from 75,000 to 90,000. You can get the surveyors in tomorrow. You don't need the United fans to tell you that. Start making decisions that you know the fans want. Get that stadium fixed and get another 15,000 seats in there. Start on it tomorrow. You don't need to talk to the Man United Supporters Trust for that in 6 months. Do it now. Start, work really fast to tell Manchester United fans what your plan is around shares. It sounds to me like United want to sit down and discuss it. But United fans have already said what they want. So are you going to give up 50%? Are you going to do it or not? Yes or no? And I think until those things become clear, then obviously fans are going to carry on doing what they do, which I think the club would expect anyway. Mark, would you give a shout out to my son on his first birthday, Liam Sebastian? Liam Sebastian Oscar, lovely middle name there. Happy birthday to Liam. The Glazers should stick to NFL. The same situation is going on with the New York Knicks and James Dolan. The Glazers don't care about the fans, says DJ Shooks. Well, you know what? In the back of my head is you've got Joel Glazer issuing this letter, and then you've got Avram Glazer nonchalantly walking around ignoring questions about the club. How is trusting them ever an option, says Ashutosh. We can't do it. We can't trust anyone except United fans to own our club after what the Glazers have done. 50+1 now. And I don't get all the hate. The Glazers are amazing owners. When you're papering the cracks though, says Zero Blade, what good is a 90k stadium if we're still run like crap? Exactly. But what I want restructuring of the football club on the board. I want football people on the board. I want pressure taken off the manager. I want a CEO and I want a director of football that speak to the media and speak to the fans, because it must be great being a Dortmund or a Bayern Munich fan, because you hear from your CEO. They talk openly about players and things like that and what they're planning to do. Professionalism and the manager coaches. I want to see that. I want to see another 15,000 at Old Trafford. I want to see a 90,000 capacity stadium because we can fill it, and that should have happened 10 years ago. I want to see fans with a say on the club, that they can't be shouted down by whoever the private investor is. I want to see massive reform at Manchester United, and I want to see it yesterday. I don't want to talk about it tomorrow. I want to see it yesterday. I bought a few shares on the stock exchange and never heard from them. No thank you, email or anything like that, says Scott Andrews. Well, you know what? I used to work in finance. I used to, understand it quite a lot. But the reality is, my understanding with Manchester United is that you can buy shares, but you've got no voting rights. So there you go. Varying Redbeard says season ticket holders. Well, look, the reality is, and I think must acknowledge that as well, and a few people are mentioning that, what does it mean to me as a global fan if... what does it mean as a fan if you're not from Manchester or England? Because this is just consultation with locals. The fans that go home and away are the lifeblood of this football club. They are. I don't want to go into this one fan's better than other thing. We don't need that. What we need is unity. It's not about local fans. It's not about British fans. It's not about match-going fans. This is about, if we are to get hold of that football club, you're going to have to buy shares in it. And to buy shares in it to the extent that you would need, it's going to need the global fan base. So there needs to be fair representation in decision making. And ultimately, if there was massive membership of Manchester United and people were being voted in to be, the representatives, then you would all be voting in that as well. So unity is very important. People need to put aside their differences, because ultimately, if this goes the way we want it to, then we'll all be voting for each other anyway in relation to who's going to represent us. Will it be Manchester United Supporters Trust? Will it be, somebody else, whatever like that? So there has to be an engaged unity in this fan base, because we all want the same thing. We all want success. We all want growth, and we all want reform. So, what we can't do is play against each other. So let's see what happens. I just want to acknowledge this from Francisco as well. He says that the Claude's funeral went round the roads around the Emirates today. Yeah, I mean, it's been a few weeks since we lost Claude off AFTV, but his funeral took place, I think it was today. Certainly seen a lot about it today. So rest in peace to Claude, of course. It seems like a long time ago now, but then, it's a sad day. So rest in peace to Claude. Yeah, we won't forget him. They should build a new stadium using the car park area while using Old Trafford. Difficult to extend Old Trafford due to the train line, says RC1 ROM30. And we really need a CDM. We removed the bubble wrap last night with poor fullbacks and no McFred, and look what happened, says Joshua Bowwater. I don't know whether you fell onto the wrong video, Joshua Bowwater, but fair play, thanks for that. If the Glazers want to stay, I think they need to give us 50+1 and a football-capable people, says Kadak. And I think, you know what? I don't know whether you meant to do that or not, but you've actually just put it perfectly. That is what they need to do. They need to give. Well, it's not even give, is it? Because they'll make money from it themselves. They need to release half of that football club to the fans. That's what they need to do. This is about getting Manchester United Football Club back. I don't feel, and you can take the tone of that letter however you want. And personally, I take the letter as it is. I've got no reason not to. I take that letter from Joel Glazer as it is, on face value. But what I would say is, on face value, is actions speak louder than words. But if you take that letter on face value, it is the owner of Manchester United trying to appease United fans. My response to that is, and I think many people agree, is that I don't recognise you as the right person to be owning that football club. So what we need to get to is a situation where you don't own that football club. Nobody owns that football club. The fans and private investment own that football club. So what I want to see is the Glazers relinquishing, effectively, in one way or another, half of that football club, and the other half being part of the fans. And if we get to that situation, then fine. Because I don't think the Glazers will hang around for very long if that happens anyway. So that is what we're looking at. That is what we want. Let's see if we can get there, because that letter could be promising the world, and it could be being used for wiping in your arse. Personally, there are things in that letter that that hint at things that we want. But we need more detail. We need structure in there. We need timelines in there. And until we get that, I don't think people are going to stop protesting. I don't think they're going to go, oh, maybe it would be wrong. It would be weak of the fan base to do that. It would be weak if everybody went, right, let's not protest anymore because we might get something. There's no promise in there. There's no promise in there. There's no detail in there. All it says is we'll discuss stuff with you. We need to get to that situation where there's proper reform at the football club. I'll join the board at Arsenal when they let fans on, says Zane. You'll probably be able to buy the whole lot. He's back. Zane's back. We found him. That's the main thing. He was hiding, but he's back. No one in their right mind is just giving away 51% of their business, but this will take a voted in representatives for the fans that gets the funding together and then a board of fans to vote, says Chris Grathwell. Look, if I was the Glazers, I would give up half of that club for 2 billion. I would say you can have half of that football club. You can construct your fan membership. You can construct your your voting rights. We're going to give up 50% of the club, but you're paying us 2 billion for it. That's what I would do. So it's not like they're going to miss out. Many people think that if somebody offered the Glazers 4 billion, they'd take it. So if they can get 2 billion and still keep half of the club, surely they would do it. Great comparison to the Knicks, says Mario. Ownership is a disgrace. Things only turned around for us once the owners stepped back and put baseball people in charge, says Mario. And also, Michael Douglas says, from Atalanta here, I don't know how it could happen, but Mancunian fans should have the first say. Then we figure out a way to get everyone else's say in it, says Michael Douglas. But I disagree with that. I disagree with that. My granddad supported Manchester United in the 50s. Many people were born in Manchester and moved away. So I don't think being a Mancunian means that you get more of a vote than any other fan. David Beckham's not a Mancunian. Bruno Fernandes isn't. Cristiano Ronaldo's not. Duncan Edwards wasn't. George Best isn't. I don't think we need to be about that. I think the match day going fans are the lifeblood of the football club. I agree with that, but they're not all Mancunian, are they? There's people who travel from Ireland, London. We need to be careful with stuff like that. I think that unity is really important, and acknowledging every fan as a fan is important. We need to work to lower the value on Manchester United to make them more likely to sell and make it less attractive proposition to sponsors, says Joshua Bowater. How are Manchester United going to remove financial people from the board when the financial model of the club can only be understood by top bankers, says Mr. Neil. But mate, but I would say to you there, Manchester United's board, if you look at Bayern Munich's board or you look at Real Madrid's board, are they all ex-bankers at JP Morgan? No, they're not. Stick them in an office. Stick them in accounts. Brand management experts, whatever. Like, the football club should be run by football people. I'm not a financial expert. I could sit on that board and have Ed Woodward tell me about brands. But I don't need Ed Woodward to give Phil Jones a 20 million contract. I don't need him to let Ander Herrera walk out the door. I'll deal with that because I know football. So the board needs to have football people on it. It's full of business people. It needs football people on it. Getting 50% is worth nothing if we don't get a guy like the one that Brian set up. With fans being so divided, we might drive it into the ground, says 12 times. And you know what? That's a conversation for way down the line if it ever happens. But I'll tell you what, I will say that United's fan base would need to do a lot of work, because if we ever did get 50%, there are so many divisions in that fan base. How would you ever get anything done? So, yeah, there's work that needs to be done there, because the fan base needs to be representative of a global fan base. Otherwise, imagine the Glazers gave up 51%, right? And then, the wrong people were representing the fans on the board. You'd have anarchy. So this is what I mean about global unity. Everybody needs to be valued and everybody needs to be part of it. Otherwise, you'll go, well, he shouldn't be there, or she shouldn't be there. So, you need that diversity, definitely. Fair point. What if they let you run it, Mark? What would you do in your first 100 days? The streets want to know, says Michael Douglas. Well, this is what I'm talking about, unity straight away, because if I was on that board as a representative, then there would be people that didn't like that. And the job is to make people actually united so that people don't have those preconceived, maybe unfair or lies or negativity about it. So this is why it needs to be a process. But look, if I was on that board and I, or I was a fan, I would want the club to get hold of its revenue stream. That debt bothers me. Even if the Glazers stay and United fans get half the club, What happens to that debt? That's the Glazers' debt. Still there. Got to clear that debt. What happens with that? I'd be saying, right, you get 2 billion Glazers for half of the club, but you clear your debts. We're not being stuck with your debt. That letter in itself, on face value, could be really useful. But there's, as you know, there's a load of stuff hidden behind that letter that you're like, whoa. But yeah, I want investment in the club. That's not just players. I'm not really massively bothered about players. As I said, this summer, I'd be happy to spend 100 million. Declan Rice and Varane, I'd be happy with that. And I don't need to go and... I think some people get lost in this thing that, United fans get hold of the club, we'd buy Haaland, Sancho, Rice and Varane. I'm very realistic as a Manchester United fan. I know the world we operate in. I know that you can't get Haaland, Sancho, Varane and Rice in one summer. And I actually look at the football team and I think Varane and Declan Rice would improve us massively next year. So that's 100 million quid. That's all we're spending. Restructuring of the club, investment in the stadia and the infrastructure behind it, getting hold of our finances, reforming the way we run, not chucking dividends out, not chucking out debt payments. That's the three things I would look at. Investment in the team, but not silly investment in the team. A restructuring of the team in the way that the club is run. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer focusing on coaching issues and what he needs to improve the team, but in discussion with a sporting director who speaks to the media and a CEO who speaks to the media and the fans as well. Restructure of the ground, investment in the ground, expansion of the ground. From top to bottom, routes change from top to bottom so that the team's vision from the under-8s is the same as it is to the first team. And most important of all, the financing of the club so that the revenue goes into the football club and not into servicing debt that we never should have had and to the owner's dividends. So they're the three strands I'd look at. It's the financing side of the club. It's the restructuring of the club in relation to, infrastructure. That's stadium, that's youth setup, that's scouting, but it's also football people on the board and a CEO and a sporting director. And then in the team, let the manager manage, invest in the team, and remove the deadwood. 3 strands for me. Anyway, let's have a look at Twitter. Somebody just said check Twitter. I don't know what's going on Twitter. Let's have a look. I love it when people say check Twitter because it's like, what's going on? What is going on? So Simon says couple of points in relation. Simon Stone's a BBC journalist. He says couple of points in the Glazer letters. It says our top priority is and always will be competing for the most important trophies, playing entertaining football with a team comprised of top quality recruits. This has been mentioned a few times before by people. Man United. Those words are now committed to paper from the very highest point of the club. In addition, under Ollie, we feel we are absolutely on the right track as contract expires next year. Assume extension imminent. And told by a few at Old Trafford that they are genuinely surprised at how quickly the whole thing has moved and that owners are committed to following up their promises and commitments. However, it is accepted after 16 years of nothing, a large element won't believe it until it happens. And that's very, very important from Simon Stone, who is a BBC journalist, is that there may well be surprise within the club at how quickly it's being spoken about, but the club will acknowledge your feelings that nobody trusts it. And that's the thing. The devil's in the detail. Actions speak louder than words. Let's see what happens from here. I agree with you, Shane, as well. The women's team will be a massive area of growth in the next 15 years. I mean, look, if you look at what's happening, in Colombia and how the women's game's been revolutionised there, I think there's a real opportunity for Manchester United to be the forefront of women's football, which again is something that's very important. That roof's been leaking since 2012, says Rasmus. And Salish says, they're scared by the level of momentum this Glazer protest has taken. We go for 50 plus 1 at least. And all-encompassing, I would say that as well. All-encompassing, that's a very good point. They are scared about what happened at the weekend. And whatever anybody thinks about what happened at the weekend, this response letter is very much about what's been going on for the last 2 weeks. If they weren't concerned, they wouldn't offer up what's up there. If they were greedy, this will blow over sort of people, they wouldn't have acknowledged it. So I would take that as a win. It's not a victory, but I'd take it as another win. because many people, myself included, thought, you know, the Glazers don't really give a shit. They won't respond. They'll just let the fire die down. They'll buy Sancho in the summer. They'll sell their shirts and everything will get forgotten. They've committed to paper on things now. Now, that paper may not be worth the paper it's written on, but the reality is they have responded. And they've responded in a way that's very accommodating on paper. Doesn't mean it'll happen, doesn't mean you can trust it, but that is because of the weight of movement that's happening. They're obviously concerned. Now, whether they're concerned about people approaching sponsors, whether scout sponsors are getting unhappy, whether it's matches getting postponed, whatever it is, they have responded to it. It's like there's small writing with terms and conditions that we can't see, so we end up signing the deal. Yeah, and the terms and conditions will be important. Do you think some of our fans will forget about the Glazers if we have a good transfer window, says Annie. I hope not. I hope not. How confident are you that Joel Glazer wrote that letter, says Advath? I would say he didn't write that letter. I would say, like any business, that was constructed with his input by professionals, because the content of that letter and how it's going to be perceived, you want it to be run over by many other people. So I don't really have a problem that he won't have. He's not sat down this morning on his typewriter and done it. Let's just say that he'll have had an input and he'll have signed it off, but it will have had a few eyes on it, I'm sure, which is what should happen. Mark, I'm only after realising that the Glazers bought Man United by taking out loans from banks in Manchester United's name, so the Glazers got United for free and the club basically bought itself out, says Aidan. Yep. Bought on debt. Seb wasn't the helper today. Anyway, look, thanks everyone for watching. We're back again at 8 o'clock. Really good show. Please smash a like on the video. Let's see where we go from here. Personally, I would say that letter is a step forward. No, I would repeat. No. I would say that letter is a statement. I would say that fans need to keep doing what they're doing because it is bothering the Glazers. And what the Glazers need to do now is, in relation to that letter, they need to provide the detail of what they're offering very, very quickly. And what they're offering cannot be, let's sit down with fans, discuss it in a month, and then we'll take another 2 months to decide what's going to happen. This needs to happen fast. It can't be 3 months of consultation. It needs to happen fast. It is high priority, numero 1. You've got to get on with it now. Don't put a letter out and go, let's just discuss it in a little while. Get on with it now. Because if you're not offering up 50%, then there's nothing to discuss. Are you offering up 50%? When are you going to invest in the stadium? These things need to happen now. What's happening with the debt? Are you still going to take dividends out? You know, are we restructuring the board so that we've got football people on there? These things need to be answered quickly. We need to understand United are listed on the New York Stock Exchange, which allows some shares greater than voting powers. As I said before, Glazers can own 10% and still vote as if they owned 51%. Very good point, Sean Finity. Very, very good point. And that's why the devil will be in the detail. Thanks everyone for watching. Smash a like on the video. Make sure you subscribe, bottom right hand corner, and we'll see you at 8 o'clock. Thanks everyone. Take care.